Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin Review Podcast. The podcast where we fail at boringly reading the latest release notes and discuss project updates. We're back with the list, and I have a big crew here today. We have Pierre Rochard. Hi, Pierre.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
We have Justin Moon. Hi, Justin.
Hello.
We have Stephan Livera, which is he's a newcomer to the list.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, NVK.
And we have the overextended podcast master, who is a great guest of the show, Moon Odell.
Yo.
Nice to have you guys. Thanks for coming. And I was just saying, I broke the website just before this, so I'm fixing it. And I guess everybody got the show notes. I hope it's in this wonderful Google Docs today. So yeah, we have a very, very full list today, and I just wanted to get a couple Coinkite Housekeepings here out of the way. Black Friday is coming. This is a message for product and service makers. If you have a product or service that you want to advertise for Black Friday with some sale, just ping the folks in our team. It's a bitcoinblackfriday.org. We're also looking for other topics for the panel version of this podcast, like we did at the wallets. And and this one is just a quick note. The bitcoinbinary.org bot is not working well. So if you love creating shell scripts for GitHub Actions, do hit me because I do need help with that, and I don't have time to deal with GitHub Actions. So we're looking for some help there. Anyways, so I figure we just kind of go straight into the list since we didn't start a good batter today.
For a little context, since NVK just jumped right into shilling his projects, I believe me and Stefan have been at the Amsterdam conference for the last 2 days, and I believe Justin is at TabConf right now.
That's correct.
Pierre, which conference are you at?
No conference, just doing Bitcoin 101 with different folks.
Look at that.
Confidential.
I love it.
Productive people don't go to conferences.
Here's a TwitterCon every day.
That's right.
You know, for the people who were not here before I started pressing record, there are no cyber hornets. Pierre is all the accounts on Twitter. He literally runs Twitter.
It's all sock puppets. Yeah, there's no plebs, there's no cyber hornets. Anyone who's pseudonymous, you just probably safe to assume it's my account.
All the nibs are Pierre.
He's just sibylling all of us. We never knew.
It's working.
It is quite amazing. All right, guys. Let's start with the software releases and project updates. Fully noted, version 0.3.4. And I guess the other, and also we missed in between the shows 0.3.5. Total balance view no longer refreshes when navigating back. JoinMarket Connect QR, that's nice. Added JoinMarket placeholders to the SSL certs. And enhancement in older versions, multi-sig NFC import not offered if a microSD card was rated there, I think. For 0.35, much improved UX around exporting, and fixes a bug where LND would only show fees collected from the last 100 HTLC events. Do you guys use fully noded every day for everything?
I'm an Android man, so unfortunately, no, have not had the chance.
I just checked. I have it installed on my phone, but I have not been using it. I need to. And now I'm poking around on it. It's changed a lot since when I installed it. Big upgrades.
Great. Are you still alive, Matt?
Fontaine is awesome, the lead maintainer, fully noted. I met him in Miami this year.
Yeah, Fontaine is
Good
great.
dude.
He was one of the first persons to work with NFC on Bitcoin NFC on the apps with ColdCard. Okay, so Specter Desktop version 1.13 feature, so improve dev console, menu extensions can extend to menus now, adding open Bitcoin app verbiage to Ledger upload keys, better balance display, do not hide elements by default, individual hard HWI progress for Ledger devices.
That reminds me of how with Ledger you have to actually click in. Like, I mean, I guess most people if you've used a lot of the hardware wallets, it's a bit of a pain that you have to actually click into the quote unquote Bitcoin app when you're using those Ledger devices. It can be a bit confusing for new users or if you're not familiar. But I know Salvatore Ingala is trying to, improve the Bitcoin situation there over at Ledger and make things like better multi-sig support and things like this. There was some interesting commentary from him today about registering the multi-sig quorum and things like that.
Oh, I saw his BIP.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He definitely wants to improve the descriptors in imports and all that stuff.
I mean, I think it's impossible for them to really, like, you buy a Ledger because you want to hold one of the 1,000 shitcoins they support.
Oh, 100%.
Like, if you're not, if you don't just go Bitcoin only, you just can't. You'll never solve that UX hurdle of needing to, click into the Bitcoin section.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can still use Ledger, I guess, like with like other clients, right? But if you're using Ledger Live, I mean, it's essentially it's like a one button shitcoin casino. it's like it just downloads, like click here, buy shitcoin, but like that's what the market wants, right? And it's okay. Okay. Nunchuk 1.9.14. They added ColdCard NFC support, which they have subsequently sort of improved a bit. Replaced by fee, ported to mobile. It was only on the desktop wallet. BIP21 and Crux QR support. New quick send shortcut. Signing using air gap keys in collab wallets is now possible. Copy to clipboard for addresses and TX IDs, and preferences or perf improvements.
Yeah, so just a quick comment here. I haven't used the latest version of Nunchuk, but I have played around with TAPSIGNER and Nunchuk, and I found it just a really great experience. I was even showing it to some of my friends in Bitcoin Dubai, just some of the Maxi crew in Dubai, and I was showing them. They were pretty happy with the whole UX of NFC and TAPSIGNER and Nunchuk, and I think it's really cool what they're doing. So it is a slightly different approach to what we've seen with the typical Electrum, Sparrow, Specter style of multi-sig. So let's see if that becomes more prominent.
What I think is really, really cool, there used to be this wallet, I think I mentioned this before here, but it was one of my favorite phone wallets, was called Copay, until a BitPay bought them and destroyed them. It was still a JavaScript wallet, still had like a lot of sort of issues around like too many inputs.
Bought Copay?
Yep, they acquired them.
I actually thought it was a BitPay project. Yeah.
No.
I thought they brewed it in the beginning.
No, it was from before them.
I actually saw someone. I was hanging out with a bunch of Bitcoiners like 4 months ago, and we stumbled on a no coiner that wanted to download her first wallet, and he told her to download Copay, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
I don't even think he exists anymore with that name.
It still exists.
Oh, really? I think was Eric Martindale who started that wallet, and then he got acquired by.
It was way ahead of its time.
BitPay. Yes.
Yeah, what was it, 2014? And they had like easy multi-sig in a smartphone? Like, that's crazy early.
It was fantastic. No hardware wallet support at the time, of course, but it was very good. Anyway, so what I like is Hugo, which is the main maintainer and the founder of Nunchuk, is taking the approach of collaborative multi-sig between like actual humans and parties, not like as a company kind of thing. It's not like Kazan and Chain kind of thing. It's more like, hey, I want to have a wallet between, say, Justin, me, and Matt, right? So one is there is encrypted comms either using email or my request to him, which, like, by the way, every single request I had for him for the last like year and a half now, probably, he incorporated within like 2 weeks. Like, it's amazing. I go on the DM, so, like, I kind of need these features, like, boom, appears. Those guys are absolute beasts. So anyway, so you can have a non-email setup, so you're not doxing yourself. Mind you, it's still like, they do use Tor by default, I think. But you're still trusting servers. You're still trusting, like, there's a level of trust with this. Just want to put that caveat out there. But anyway, so you can actually you can create a new multi-sig wallet with the parties being remote. So you can do the quorum to consolidate the XPubs and everything through the app, which is phenomenal. And then you have encrypted comms using the keys, which was also my request, so that you don't need to have a password and username or any of that crap. And you can sort of like talk to each other, coordinate, propose transactions. A huge part of money is coordination, right? So having that is super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be overstated how important the built-in comm layer is. Because, like, I've done multi-sigs with very experienced Bitcoiners, and just pasting PSVTs and shit in Matrix or some encrypted
you
chat,
get doxed.
It's also the worst UX ever.
Yeah.
It's fucking annoying. It's like, which part am I, like, which one is partially signed by one key or two keys? And like, it's a pain in the ass.
So next, I really want to, like, have somebody champion it. I definitely don't want to do the work. I want to have somebody champion a new comms protocol for wallets, so that you can have an open sort of comm layer that, don't know, it could be XMPP kind of thing. But, like, point is, we need some open protocol for wallets to talk to each other, because then it's not just within Nunchuk, right? It would be, say, between Nunchuk and Sparrow or whatever.
Let's put Craig. That's what I was going to say. Let's just put Craig and Hugo on the phone together. Just like give them a little 5-minute intro, and then just hang up the phone and let them figure it out.
There you go. So there is that. And another cool thing too is Nunchuk and us and some guys from the Shift Crypto did the BSMS. So it's essentially like it's nothing like too crazy or too clever. Like, but it's just like a way of standardizing backup files and setup files for multi-sig as well. So we are getting there, and that's the backup file that you do with Nunchuk. So with Nunchuk now, you can do comms, you can do the collaboration, you can set up the stuff, and you can use the hardware wallets with NFC, with SD card, and with USB on the desktop version of it. It's quite phenomenal. We just gifted them a batch of Nunchuk branded TAPSIGNERs, so that I want them to sort of like push that self custody, that kind of easy stuff, and I think they're going to have services soon. Anyways, like, fantastic work by those guys. I really, it's nice to see people trying to actually do new things. All right. Electrum 4.3.2. When creating new requests, reuse addresses of expired requests, index request by ID instead of receiving address, trampoline routing, fix sweep to local, output from channel backup, harden script for macOS binary, avoid using precompiled wheels from PyPy, and the Windows app image Android binaries are now built using Debian. So I feel like Electrum is going like in a terrible wrong direction of UX. It's like driving me nuts. Like you need extra clicks. There's extra buttons in the UI that don't really. It's just, it takes like 3-4 windows to sign a transaction. I don't think LN should exist there, which is a shame, because it's the most sort of like OG. One of the most OG wallets. I mean, it was the first wallet really, like it was publicly made after Core. So it's kind of like annoying to see it go in this UX direction. Oh, and there is no more XFP information for wallets that exist. So you can't go and find the XFP information to make sure that the wallet is. Anyways, it's driving me absolutely nuts. So if anybody from Electrum is there, I appreciate the hard work you guys put in, but please, make the UX simpler, not more complicated. Do any of you guys still use Electrum?
I did try out their Lightning implementation, and yeah, it's a lot to do in one piece of software to do on chain and Lightning. But I also think that I actually do like the idea of it. And then when I looked in the code base, because it's in Python, I thought, well, maybe it'd be interesting to use their Python Lightning code as a library. And it's just not possible. It's all very hard coded in there.
Yeah, this is the challenge that Electrum always had, is that it started when Bitcoin was much different, right? It was even pre BIP32, so it's just a constantly sort of like added on kind of code base. It's quite challenging to read it.
Do you think we're going to see like the emergence of Taproot native wallets, right? Because you build up so much cruft from having to support past things, and if you want to do something new, like I could just imagine people just starting from scratch.
There is very few people out there that can build wallets. There's very few people out there who are willing to build wallets.
We're going to have fresh new blood. There's going to be another bull market. There's going to be lots of new developers coming in.
I don't know, like I find like even wallets like Moon, which are made like sort of like post a lot of things, it's still a Bitcoin sort of semi-OG there, right? Like there is very few people out there who have the capacity to really build a wallet. It's surprisingly hard. But that's what the beauty of BDK, for example, right? So we can have people who have a much better view of UX, a much better sort of like, like intent in how to handle the transactions, do all that stuff. But, the true hard part that is very sort of domain specific knowledge as well is done by BDK. So, maybe the BDK part for Taproot will be sort of like very good or good enough. And then that would be used as the base to go forward with it. But it's surprisingly hard. And maintaining it is even harder. and that's what happens to a lot of wallets. Like, people go and they build it, and then like sort of like keeping up with the changes and keeping up with everything it's not a photo sharing app building on Bitcoin.
Right, because as an example, even if the Electrum guys wanted to go Taproot only, they've got all these legacy users who they just couldn't, like, they can't just say no to them and just leave them in the lurch. And I guess that's part of the problem, right? So we'll see if, yeah.
I think what Pierre was saying was it'd be like a new wallet comes out of the gate that's just like Taproot native.
I think it'll happen. I'm just skeptical.
In a sense, this is what Taro is. It's just like a Taproot native wallet that does all kinds of crazy stuff in Tapleaf stuff. And what Jeremy Rubin is working on now with the Judica, he just announced this thing, Judica VM. It's like an extension of Sapio, which is like a programming environment to make like graphs of transactions, right? Like this is stuff that uses a bunch of the commitments in the Merkle trees to express fancy stuff that I don't really understand yet. And so I think these are two examples of Taproot native all.
Good point. LND is Taproot by default, but that's Lightning only, right?
Well, I think the issue is not getting software sort of like written, is for that software to be of quality and of notability and of enough reviews for people to put real money in it. That bar is a very high bar to be crossed. I have no doubt that like the Taro stuff is going to be fantastic, but like it's going to take so long for people to trust it to put like real money in it as their Bitcoin wallet, not their Taro.
Yeah, well, it's not
wallet.
really a Bitcoin wallet. That's the thing.
There you go.
It uses Bitcoin, but it's not a Bitcoin. You're not like the asset you're storing is not Bitcoin, so it's kind of weird in that way.
so this sort of trying to say is like, I kind of feel like I'm sounding like that old grumpy man, but the reality is when it comes to real money, the old grumpy man keep your money safe, right? Like, I actually hope that this just inspires young people to be old grumpy man in mentality when they're building and they go build wallets. We do need that work to be done. It just can't be done as a sort of like, like let's play thing kind of deal.
So basically, there's a high bar.
Very high.
Yeah.
All right. Fountain 0.5.1. Autoplay Q, Apple CarPlay, OPML import, performance upgrades. So I just wanted to bring this up. I got a little bit of hate on Fountain because I was shitting on Podcast 2.0 or whatever they call it, the value for value thing. A person literally tipped me and said that it feels weird to be tipping somebody who hates on that tip. I totally appreciate that. I think people get it wrong. It's just that, like, I absolutely love that. I just fail to see how that sort of scales because, there's a reason why advertising model works is because, users hate paying for things. But it doesn't mean I don't like it or I don't love it or I don't hope it doesn't happen. So anyway, to that listener who did comment there, I did read it and I do empathize with your comment. It's just complicated. But it is fun to be there. And as I said this before, I absolutely love when people like send me a tip and sort of say something. It means more than just a comment.
But do you really think we have the advertising model because users don't pay things, or is it because...
Absolutely.
I'm with NVK here.
We've never had this capability before. Like, we've never had the ability for an audience to directly fund the content they listen to without a minimum.
But Matt, think just the math of this, right? Let's say you have Joe Rogan's audience. Okay, so 11 million downloads on a single episode or something like that, right? So let's say each person is giving 10 sats, right? So that's still very little money. Can somebody do the math quickly there on 10 sats times 11 million times the current Bitcoin price?
But that's not how it works out. How it works out is very few people give money, but the ones that do give large amounts of money.
But they don't.
I think it's yet to be seen.
I hope it happens.
The ad model is convenient, especially within the confines, like the constraints of the legacy system. The ad model is very profitable and very convenient. I think people might be able to make more money, going with a value for value model. It just hasn't been proven out yet. Sam Harris is pretty successful, and he's within the constraints of the traditional system.
So I just ran the numbers, by the way. It's about, so as an example, correct me if I got it wrong, but it looks like it's about 110 million sats, which at today's prices is about 21,288 USD, which is far less than what Joe Rogan would be charging for on ads.
And you can only have like 10 pods that big, right? Like, actually, there's just one, as the market has proven. I feel like we can find like a much more interesting sort of middle ground there somewhere, right? Where you have, say, resyndication for $1, right? So people create curated lists and they get paid for having those curated lists, and they share that with the makers of the pods. Or, the advertising sort of placement could be much better and better sort of rerouted and better syndicated with Lightning, right? So that you have like better distribution of capital. There's like a lot of like other more complicated, cool stuff that essentially like all the advertising markets on social media, right, could all be redone much better because there's no friction or cost on those transactions. It's just, I feel like the value for value is very similar to open source. Everybody uses the stuff, but ends up never paying for it. So like, I don't know. It's just challenging. I think there will be a niche. I think some people will make money. Like say, what's the name? The Pod 2.0.
Adam Curry.
Adam Curry. So Adam Curry does make a proper living out of this stuff, but I think it's not going to be like as wide as people hope. But let's hope so. Let's hope it works. Please keep the tips coming. I do enjoy those sats, okay? All right, so Robosats 0.2.1 dispatch includes the new book table component. This is the first alpha release with Android APK. Do you guys use Robosats? Matt does.
Robosats is fucking awesome. I actually met someone here in Amsterdam who just translated all their documentation to Chinese.
Amazing.
And he's looking for another Chinese speaking individual to proofread it. So if you're out there, hit me up.
There you go. All right. I feel like we kind of glanced over this in the last episode. COLDCARD 5.0.7. I won't go through all the things, but that is the official release. Matt is laughing.
Because you put your own update in 2 episodes in a row.
Of course. Somebody has to pay for all this production. So it's actually more stuff added. NFC enhancements, multi-sig NFC import, NFC message signing, show address over NFC. And the NFC message signing was important because Nunchuk needed to do health checks. So that was recent, but it's going to be on Nunchuk next release. The HSM enhancements, dynamic HSM whitelisting, HSM policy hash display during first activation, ignores HSM commands over USB by default now. We're going to probably remove the whole HSM stack from main release unless people want it. Then they would just sort of activate it or have separate firmware. I don't know yet. Enhancements, menu wrapping. This was a big one for me. Allow import of descriptors. Descriptor type specifies both internal and external in a single string. Add ability to specify address format in the text file to be signed. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll probably move to the next. Okay. So EmbassyOS version 0.3.2. Auto-scrolling for logs. Improve connectivity between browser and Embassy. Switch to Postgres for EOS database. Multiple bug fixes, various UI UX enhancements, removal of product keys. Anybody using EmbassyOS right now? It's Start 9, right?
There was way more. There was way more in the changelog than the release notes than you read.
Well, those are the highlights that they put on. That's the deal.
I was like getting excited. I thought you were going to read the whole fucking thing.
No. By the way, we do the same to our products too. COLDCARD, we only put the summary. We do not go through the whole list. It's too much.
It was a massive update. Supposedly, they did a lot of work behind the scenes on that one.
Yeah. So what I have here is essentially the summary, which is the 6 items, and then there is like which they wrote, the highlights, and then there is a what's changed, which is like a million issues.
So, like in practical terms, what I heard from them, because I saw their lead dev 2 weeks ago, is that it is a massive performance improvement and reliability improvement for nodes that are running on Raspberry Pis. But what's also really interesting about Start 9 is one of these node projects, right? So like you can run a bunch of self-hosted things on them. Is they're about to release in partnership with Purism, which is like a well-known privacy security hardware manufacturer, like a top tier node. It's like $1,900. It runs an Intel chip. So that's interesting. It's the first, Bitcoin focused one to kind of go into that premier step.
Nice to see.
Because I know you hate pies, so that's why.
Yeah, no, fuck Raspberry Pis. I mean, like nothing that has pi in the name, which is high carb, high fiat, should be used for Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I did a recent episode with Matt Hill, so we spoke a little bit about some of this stuff. Actually, it came up in response to my other episode with Catan, where Catan was also sharing your sentiment about Raspberry Pis. So yeah, they spoke a bit about that. It sounds like the idea is obviously not just Bitcoin, but the idea is to sort of how much could you replace by fossing someone's stuff, right? Whether that's a business or a community, could you replace things with the likes of Nextcloud or Mattermost instead of Slack or these kinds of things, and then sort of make that case that the business can save money by going FOSS and using the Embassy device instead. So there's a bit of a play there. It's interesting to see what way they go. Also, they took away, it seems, the product key. So I can't remember the detail of that, but I recall also, Odell, you had a Citadel dispatch where there was a big debate about, okay, how much FOSS should the node projects be? And, on one side, you've got Raspberry Blitz and Ronin Dojo, who are like full FOSS. Then you've got the people who are somewhere in the middle, like Start9 and MyNode. And then over on the other end, you've got like the Umbrals of the world, right?
They're source viewable, Start9. You can build it yourself. You can verify it, but you can't monetize it. So similar license to NBK, not the exact same license.
I've been talking to a lot of founders, and I think the problem is there's a huge chunk of devs out there that are terrified of the FOSS people. And also there's a lot of FOSS people who are just absolutely like disheartened with the lack of code review and sort of like the status of FOSS. And I think a lot of this can be attributed to like the existing FOSS sentiment and sort of attitude, especially by the people who don't write code. Actually, the majority of the FOSS zealotry comes from people that don't write code. This is not a new debate. This is not going to end debate. Maybe that's what the next episode panel should be. I should get a lawyer, a few people from different walks of life that are like in the FOSS spectrum that are interested in talking about this a bit more honestly.
Well, you should just get a bunch of maintainers of MIT licensed projects and tell them that they don't code.
But that's not what I said. Yeah, anyways, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are scared shitless of talking about the stuff publicly, which is the biggest challenge, right?
That's definitely true.
And it's just nice to see some projects with some balls that do what they want to do.
I pulled up that Embassy Pro that we were talking about. Like, it's a fucking powerhouse. 32 gigs of RAM. It's got a brand new i7 in it. 2 terabytes SSD. Like, they're going for a proper self-hosted machine.
Nice.
And you can build it yourself on desktop,
and because it cannot be re-commercialized, it's not going to be Amazon and Google who are going to make the money over their effort. That's ultimately who makes the money from all the FOSS. It's Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Anyways, so yeah, I met Matt, a solid dude, really wants to make this happen. Like he's a person who really wants to change the way this kinds of product category are done, which is also nice to see.
Yeah, jokes aside, I mean, you should definitely have Matt on. I feel like you two would vibe really. It'd be really.
I met him and we chatted. I didn't chat as much as I'd like to.
No, but I mean recorded.
Oh, you mean recorded? Oh, I see. Yes. I feel like if I'm recording this, one, I should be 100% sober, and two, I should have probably somebody in the middle there just to moderate and tame some views and commentary.
You can have guest Matt Odell.
Right. I don't know. Matt can be a zealot.
I was very fair on the roundtable. The node one we were talking about, and Matt was on that one too.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what's funny, right? What was his name? Future Paul.
He's a real zealot.
Yeah, I know, but it was funny because he was making fun that I took some of the text from Bitcoin bounties. But at the
you didn't give him credit.
Yeah. No, I did attribute. But anyways, he did. But what was funny is he actually took my code from something else, and he didn't even know. And then, anyways, we were laughing about that. But yeah, I mean, it's not easy, and it's going to be a very, very tricky dynamic forever on that. To me, the most important thing to Bitcoiners is that the security needs to be done in public. Everything needs to be verifiable. How people choose to monetize, don't monetize, give, don't give, that's their problem. That is my view.
Let me make one comment about Start9. It's like of all the node implementations, I think they've gone. They built like a actual operating system kind of in Rust that does a good job of modeling the state of the machine. So if you're going to write a new package, like we're going to write a Fediman package at some point, so you can spin up this federated private bank. and be a, from your Raspberry Pi. And so one of the cool things is it can like kick
we call
off
it Moon
flows.
Shitcoin.
No comment on that. You can fire up flows and kind of understand what is the state of your Bitcoin node, what is the state of your Lightning node, like what configuration needs to happen. So I think this Start 9 has like a really solid foundation for building like future protocols on top of Bitcoin and Lightning, where versus some of the other ones. They're also really, they branch out outside of Bitcoin as well. They have like photo viewers, chat servers. Like they're trying to do a lot more than the other ones, I think. And which is a downside too, like do you want your photos? Do you want a bunch of photos, swimming around your Lightning channel private key file? That's kind of scary.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, we were talking to them about we're gonna, if we do that code node thing we want to do, we would have to create a package that creates essentially a delta of Bitcoin Core's DB, so that you can then air gap move that around. So we would need some of these node projects to sort of be the high availability latest copy of the chain available. So looking forward to that. All right. Blockstream Green QT 1.1.4. Support for incremental Jade firmware update. Enable request two-factor reset for Liquid. After Nunchuk, I don't really use Green too much. It is a like a nice UX wallet. They did start supporting sort of like standard SIG things, so it's kind of nice. Do any of you guys use Green right now?
Nope.
I think it's a great way for you to have Liquid support, right? Which is like not very broad install base. So it's nice to see.
I feel like the only wallet that has less users than Copay is Green Wallet.
I think it's sort of like, it's kind of, it used to have a lot of users back before Blockstream bought them. It used to be called Green Address, yes. And it was actually based on the idea of you having a pre-vetted UTXO.
No, it wasn't a pre-vetted UTXO. It was more novel than that. It was a multi-sig where they controlled one key.
Right.
And then they had a deal with the merchant where the merchant would trust that they wouldn't charge them back. So if you paid from Green Address, the merchant could do a zero confirmation transaction because they trusted Green Address wasn't going to double spend them.
And it's Lawrence who the maintainer is. And
it was a cool idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, the problem is when he came out to Green Address, there was also some talks on the mailing list about Green addresses being like state sanctioned addresses. So it murkied the water a little bit of the concept and the name. That sort of sent back the project a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it even muddied it in your brain. You were like,
yes,
prove that.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. Right. Next here. Sorry, I was trying to buy some domains.
But even if you're using Liquid, wouldn't you use like a lot of, they have another wallet now. They have like Aqua.
Aqua is Green.
It almost goes back to Pierre's earlier comment where it just almost feels like there's so much debt on, like tech debt on Green Wallet.
Yeah, but I think Aqua is kind of going to be...
It's Green.
Yeah, but Aqua is actually going to... You know how Samson Mao left Blockstream to start Jan 3? And I think Aqua is eventually going to be relaunched as part of Jan 3. So, I think there will be some separation there eventually.
Aqua is Jan 3.
So, Justin, where should I redirect moonshitcoin.cash?
Just send it to his Twitter profile.
Good one. Okay. That was a freebie.
He's going to make you buy it back from him at the top.
That's right. LND 0.15.2-beta. Wow, that was that. Everybody talked about this a bit already. Is the big Taproot multi-sig transaction. 998 out of 999 multi-sig to prove a point, which broke BTCD, which is what LND was running behind the scenes, which I'm actually surprised. I thought LND was LNDD.
I'm butchering. They use they use the library in common, right? But you can use even if you were using the Bitcoin D backend, you still had this bug because LND was using a library that is a BTCD library.
I mean, it's a fair bug.
Yeah, I think this is good.
I mean, it's totally fair bug. I
It's
mean,
good. Shows people are using things.
No, I mean, seriously, like Bitcoin is growing, right? So there's going to be a lot of more complexity and a lot more features. But because Bitcoin is actually good, it doesn't let you interact with the network in a way that you're not supposed to interact with the network, in the positive or in the negative, right? So if you're not supporting a transaction that is supported, you're going to fork off, right? That would have been the example of essentially SegWit. If you didn't support SegWit and your node started seeing SegWit transactions, you would have forked off.
No, isn't it? Well, first of all, I fucking love Barack. He is a smart kid. I'm glad we have him. And just seems like a good dude. Isn't it like it's because they were like half doing it? They were like looking at like they had Taproot support because it's a soft fork, right? So if your node is pre-SegWit, you wouldn't be seeing SegWit transactions at all. You just wouldn't even know they existed. In this case, they were updated, so they saw the Taproot transaction. They just library couldn't handle
but they didn't have the full implementation. Yeah.
Okay, my understanding of it was that you could have done this without Taproot. It's just it has to do with the amount of data.
I did not look into it.
I'd have to look at the details, but I think because if I recall correctly, there's somebody who reproduced it without Taproot.
Interesting.
Let's see how many bytes here. No, it's pretty small.
But like it's not syncing with the chain, right? It like wasn't staying with chain tip after.
As far as I know, BTCD forked off.
In general.
Completely forked.
So just from Lalu's comments, he was saying the issue was in BTCD's wire passing library that deserializes raw blocks. So I think there was some particular check that he had put in, or that the BTCD team had put in, so that it was that it would validate, it would accept the block, but it was to do with how it passes the block as it comes over the wire. I think that was the issue. So then they had to update that and get that in line, and that was where they did this hotfix to go 15.2.
Because if you were running a pre-Taproot Bitcoin BTCD, you didn't fork off, right?
That's right.
But don't forget, LND from 0.15 onwards was Taproot by default.
Right.
So yeah, I think that to sync the state of a Lightning node, you have to process blocks, which you get from your Bitcoin node. And so this transaction, there's a raw transaction, and it's quite huge. So I think basically the stack size in the witness was like 1,100 or 11,000 bytes. It was hard coded. Anything above 11,000 bytes, BTCD would just error on. And this transaction was like a little above that, right? So it just couldn't. It just rejected it. And so then
why are they running a random size? Because Bitcoin network can take a bigger transaction than that.
Yeah, so there is like a top size here, because you don't want to accept like an arbitrarily large transaction, because you have to load it into memory. If it's too big, it could crash it. You don't want to have to attempt to validate it.
Oh, okay. So it was their choice.
So you need some of these limits, but so the limit was too low, and so it just it couldn't parse this, and therefore it rejected the block, and therefore your Lightning node your Bitcoin D Lightning node might have caught up, be it been at chain tip, but Lightning D was not. And one really bad thing here is that you could actually tell if a Lightning node, an LND node, is not at chain tip. And so it's very easy to scan the network and see which nodes you can steal money from. So if you haven't updated, you've probably already lost your money. I think it'll be close depending on how long your timeouts are in Lightning. So that's kind of one of the scary things, is you really had to update quick, and if you haven't, you should update. And then
what's the default time lock?
I think 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So then there's probably still time.
So then you still have time, right?
Yeah. So just upgrade your LND node if you haven't. That's like the takeaway if you're listening. One kind of concerning thing is that they're using a library BTCD that doesn't have a maintainer, that doesn't have like a full-time developer. So this is one of those things where maybe this would have been caught if they had more people. Like for example, they did test this parsing logic, but they only did it with transactions. They didn't do it from a block. So the code path that was getting exercised didn't get tested, even though they thought they had. Another cool one is there's a tool released by Tony Giorgio. It's called LNsploit, which is like I don't think it's in the notes. It's like a cool thing to like execute exploits on the Lightning network. This is and so he actually gave a demo yesterday of showing how to steal this money between two reg test nodes. So it's kind of interesting. Lightning hasn't existed in an adversarial environment, and so this is like seeing tools like this arise. It's if there is an exploit, it'll become easier to do it, which encourages people to be a little more conservative.
And also, like, there's just an incentive problem too, right? Because it's a lot less value. So sort of like low-hanging fruit problems that can only access nodes that don't have a lot of money may not be as exploited as a Bitcoin sort of client that may be holding millions.
Well, this situation reminded me of an idea I'd had of having a node out there that is trying to bait people into trying to exploit it. So, pretending to be offline while still watching. And this would have just been a great opportunity to have a plausible, oh, hey, come, broadcast an old state, and then snap, you punish them, you come back online immediately. And so, like, I think that once you've got people doing that, then now the game theory is like, all right, I don't know if this person's actually offline or not. And that's I think the important equilibrium to be at, so that Lightning is robust in an adversarial environment.
Yeah, it also gets into the conversation about watchtowers, right? It's the same kind of idea that even if your node is offline, or hypothetically, if your node was not updated, but the watchtower was, maybe there's something there.
This is like the debate about should you have concealed carry or open carry of a handgun? And yeah. I like the concealed carry argument of, well, don't you want it to be the case that nobody knows if somebody else is armed or not, right? And so I would want watchtowers to be like concealed as well. Of like, you don't know if this person's using a watchtower or not. Mess around, find out.
I think what Pierre is advocating for is a polite society. An armed society is a polite society. A view for the security of Bitcoin and Lightning.
Since you guys mentioned watchtowers, am I correct that the main LND watchtower that people use was also affected by this?
Oops.
Yes, correct. I know, what's his name? Sergi Delgado. He has this...
Eye of Satoshi.
But I'm not sure if that would have caught this in this.
That only works with core Lightning. It doesn't work with LND, is my understanding.
Correct. Yes.
So like LND has a prepackaged watchtower that everyone's been using, and that also
would have been vulnerable. Yeah, but that's also a conversation then about where watchtowers go. Should there be some kind of cross compatibility? I don't know.
Yeah, this is why I normally avoid Lightning subjects in the show, because like we're more like a based layer kind of thing, and it's just too complicated. All right,
even at the base layer though, like I think this is a great argument for running multiple implementations side by side, and so that way you have some awareness of what's going on, because hypothetically, you could have a bug in Bitcoin Core that's not in BTCD, right? That there's no rule against that, and that's something you would want to catch as well. So
Bitcoin Knots is the one to run. But I'm not joking. It's
Bitcoin Knots, old versions of Bitcoin Core,
run all the versions,
and B Core, and etc. But yeah,
because LND was the only one that went down. Core Lightning was still up. LDK was still up. Electrum.
Well, Core Lightning is in C. That's why it was running.
And even then, you could still, just to be clear, the failure mode here was not, like, you could still route payments. It was just that your node wouldn't be able to tell if the open or close, like, channel got closed. So
you can tell if you're getting attacked.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say before we move on that one of my favorite parts of this whole thing is that Barack tweeted it out, super excited. He's like, I just did this massive multi transaction for only $4, and then he just broke all the LND nodes.
But it's always how it is, right? Like, this is exactly how software breaks.
Better that way than a malicious person, right?
That's right. Can you imagine if he was a shitcoiner that found this bug? It would have been major drama, but because he was like a friendly, it's like, who cares? Nobody reports on it. So the next update is for Matt, and it's mostly because I found out that like their last fucking VK commit really was just drama, and they really just removed OpenDime because the library was broken and they didn't want to fix it. So I figured I'd bring back the Ninja wallet here. Samurai version 0.99.98F, making a debut on Bitcoin.review. They have a new Paynim bot and two-bar menu. Authenticate with using Paynim. Brand new UI for both. Initiating collaborating Stonewall. New join bot. Anti-spam fee. And new tools screen for other things that will definitely not include my products because I'm persona non grata. So, Matt, please take the floor.
It was a major update. It's good to see it covered.
There you go. Remember, folks, make sure you use it of your own dojo always. That is my view.
Yeah, you should always use your wallet with your own node.
That's right.
Otherwise, you're trusting someone else's node.
Exactly. All right. Is there any other software updates, like version updates, that I may have missed before we move on to the next section of the show?
Was that Jam Wallet a new thing with a Jam UI for JoinMarket? That was a new thing since the last.
Oh, good point.
Might have missed that.
Yeah, I saw a few people sharing that. It looks really slick.
But it's not a new release. It's a beautiful website, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it seems like a new UI for.
Well, regardless, it's awesome.
So do you guys want to talk about that gem thing? What's the URL?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay. So
Jam app, maybe. I think they're on Raspberry Blitz and Umbrel now.
Umbrel has it, yeah.
JM.
But they made a really clean new website.
No.
What?
Do not go to jmjams.com.
It's a JoinMarket web UI.
Oh, there it is. jamapp.org.
But it's a really pretty, easy to use web UI if you're running your own node.
Very pretty.
Particularly helpful to people that are running one of these popular node projects because it's just like point and click.
JoinMarket is my favorite privacy project. It is the least dramatic and the most productive. So, and the least central, it's fully decentralized. That's the part that really is to me the.
Oh, they have a quote up from you on the website.
It's really?
Are you just playing dumb this whole time?
Where is it?
Yeah, it's on their front page if you scroll down.
You're the influencer showing them.
I don't see it.
Basically, you're making the point that a lot of the other ones could get shut down and that JoinMarket is, decentralized. That's
great. Hey, look at that.
Last time I tested it, it was ClearNet only. So just keep that in mind. They say themselves it's still beta, but they're moving very quickly, which is great to see.
That's fantastic. We need more options with more decentralizationness to these things. We will win out like big time.
I actually spoke to them because we have a bounty out for basically what Jam is.
Nice.
A web UI for JoinMarket. And it sounds like they're trying to get consensus because there's maybe like 8 to 10 contributors, but they might just donate it to a different open source project.
Hey, Spyro, I know you guys love to support and like make it rain on open source project. So look, there is one right here that could use some fiat bucks.
No, but they literally said they don't want the bounty.
Oh.
I'm saying the opposite.
Oh, the opposite. Oh, well. Okay, well, it's great to see.
If they're makers on JoinMarket, they could end up making money off of more people using it.
There you go. All right. Next one on News and Noteworthy is one of my projects, but I do have somebody else working on it, which is kind of cool. BitcoinTreasuries.net. There's a whole new website, completely sort of properly made. Is no longer a Google spreadsheet being hosted with a hack. And you're going to be able to create your own account in the next probably couple weeks and sort of contribute data. There's APIs going to be in and out. I've talked to the folks from Glassnode. There's some brilliant kids there. We're gonna sort of find a way of also listing wrapped Bitcoin in DerpFi. It's very important because the DerpFi people do have a lot of Bitcoin, and they are, wanting or not, a influencer in the greater Bitcoin economy. So I want to capture that and understand that risk. There is charts and all kinds of cool stuff. The guys from what was her name? Mackenzie, that one of the only good Bitcoin journalists, just used the site as a reference in one of her latest articles. anyways, it's a lot of fun, man, to have this data there, because it's kind of like watching the size of the pile that people are making on Bitcoin. And business people are very competitive, and they need a leaderboard to understand how much more Bitcoin they need to buy. So if I can provide that as a service, so be it. So yeah, pretty excited about that. The new site does look fucking awesome.
I just want to point out before we move on that NVK sold BitcoinTreasuries.org to the same guys that bought BitBo, and then he just launched BitcoinTreasuries.net and made improvements.
To be fair, though, I did want to sell the whole package, the data, the domains, the Twitter account, and everything. They said they didn't want it. I said, listen, if you don't want to buy the whole thing, then I'm going to run it because I'm still passionate about this project. So they're okay with it. So that's what it is. It's .NET now, even though I don't like the .NET framework. So yeah, so we have that going there. It's a lot of fun. Stratum V2 reference implementation. This is really cool. Stratum V2 is a big deal for miners. It was a long time coming. It's not simple, and it's just one of those things that like people got it done. Any of you guys have some commentary on it? Okay, none of us are gonna have fun staying poor the next few weeks as miners. Well, actually, no. Pierre works for Riot now. This gonna be it's gonna be wonderful to have the new hash rate to the current Bitcoin prices. But I am certain Riot is gonna make it.
Or maybe the new hash is Riot's.
Well,
I did see Riot was number 6 on the leaderboard, so I think they'll make it.
I have a long-running theory that what happens every single bear market cycle that the hash rate goes up is essentially the miners that are in a good cash position, they will hold off turning on hash rates just before the price truly dumps. And then like just when everybody looks like they're gonna like completely get destroyed because of the price and their leverage on the mining equipment, then they go and they turn on the mining gear to really like destroy completely the mining competition, and then they'll just buy them all out.
Is that the equivalent of like one kid bullying the other by dunking his head under the water?
Yeah, kind of. But to be fair, like that kid is dunking their own heads into the water.
I think that's a little bit too conspiratorial. I mean, I think that speaking as an insider, at the end of the day, it takes time to deploy. And in order for the profit margin compression to happen, yeah, it takes like 18 to 24 months, right?
Wow.
And so that's why, from the top of the bull market to the bottom, it's a brutal ride down, but hash rate number go up. And then the cycle will start all over again. People will abandon, the marginal miners will turn off, right? They'll go away. And then the Bitcoin bull market will come back, and then everyone will be scrambling to build more infrastructure and then actually come online during the next bear market.
So what Pierre essentially described is that scene where the bully is grabbing the kid's hand and punching them in the face with their own hand and saying, "You're doing this to your own self." I'm just kidding. No, it is actually like, it's new to me. I'm not super like into the mining industry,
but you are into the manufacturing industry. It takes time to manufacture a new device, right? And so.
No, it's just fascinating to me how long though, like the 16 to 18 months for like, because the mining industry it's fairly like mature, right? Well, I mean, mature between quotes, like mature for Bitcoin, right?
I mean, look, we just had a 1,000 multi-sig cause, a big bug, and like we're all so trying to figure this out at the same time. We're so early. We are so early.
Yeah, and I think one other point to add is that really, like from the miner's point of view, I don't think it's that likely that they would have capacity that they could turn on that they don't.
Yeah, that would never happen.
Right? Like, why wouldn't they? Like, if they're profitable, they should turn it on, right?
Yeah.
So I think that kind of maybe goes against the conspiratorial argument in some way, because it's kind of like, look, they just genuinely have some delay with getting the machinery or getting the rack space or getting the power, and that kind of thing.
The power infrastructure seems to be like the biggest bottleneck now, not the ASICs or the gear. It seems some of the miners that I have sort of conversations with seems to be their problem. I don't know if that's widespread in the industry, but like, you can't get transformers.
Yeah.
You can't get like the actual last mile of that because like people don't understand the size of the energy delivery that you have last mile for miners. It's pretty crazy.
And like Riot acquired a company called ESS Metron that makes electrical equipment.
There you go.
It's like you got to do whatever it takes.
You guys must be loving the price of copper right now.
There's definitely, I mean, I guess just refer to our public financial statements. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I have a friend, a hunting friend, who does the electrical design for Amazon warehouses. Very smart kid. And he's always telling me like, dude, you have no idea the insanity right now. It's like, I can't get this, I can't get that. And this is like fucking Amazon, right? Like, I mean, they go like jump and the companies go how high. So I can't even imagine how difficult it is for companies that don't have that kind of reach, because a lot of the stuff you guys are buying is commodity, right? So you guys are literally competing with Amazon warehouses. So it must be very interesting. Hardware is fun.
It is, but Riot is growing, and we just came out with our monthly report. Our hash rate is still hitting records. So yeah, adding more machines every day.
Cool. All right, next update is Pleb creates a 2 of 3 multi-sig air gap vault with COLDCARD, Ledger, and TAPSIGNER. It's the Keykeeper. I think that's actually the Praneef, I think is his name. One of the main lead devs at Hexa Wallet. Man, I think you know those guys. You know those guys well.
Yeah, so I mean, Hexa Wallet originally had like a novel. It was a mobile wallet that had like a novel Shamir secrets combined with multi-sig scheme and no seed backups. And they realized the importance of standards, so they pulled that scheme. They made Hexa Wallet just a basic, seed standard wallet that complies with the seeds that everyone else uses. And then they came out with this separate app, Keeper, that is focused on multi-sig and specifically working with hardware wallets on phones. So they're kind of like the second ones to do it after Nunchuk. And I mean, I expect this trend to continue. Like mobile first kind of experiences are going to become more and more common because more and more Bitcoiners, that's going to be the main way they interact.
Well, I mean, like, 90% of the world is mobile first, right? I mean, it's pretty crazy. People who have like real money in sort of like first world terms will have computers and they're going to go for air gap and it's going to be a fuck ton of money. But like when you're talking about, the majority of the world's population, you will be mobile first. People don't actually own a computer. And they'll have phones with crappy cameras and, crappy screens. And that's why like NFC is on everything. That like NFC will eat the world. It already did with payments. So it's just a progression of that. I think this is great. And what's cool too is that all these wallets are supporting everything. They're supporting QRs, they're supporting SDs, they're supporting NFCs. At the end of the day, the more ways people have to interact with Bitcoin and ways to not have the keys on their phones, the better. I think this is super cool. And these guys are based in India too, which is, I hope they start focusing on that market as opposed to the North American market. It must be a smaller market at the moment, but I don't know. Like, have you talked to them about this?
From my perspective, there's a lot of mind share in the American English-speaking community. So they've been it's like two-pronged. They've obviously been focused on the ground in India, but they basically are publicizing themselves to American English speakers for peer review. Like they even have a big conference they're doing there, the first Bitcoin only India conference.
I'm a speaker.
Yeah, me and Stephan will be remote. I assume you're remote as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But they're good guys. They mean well.
Yep, they do. They got some of the bounty for JavaScript library.
They're not like the most talented dev team by any means in the space, but they're trying and they're improving. And it's good to see because they do mean well.
I think as projects like that start to have a bigger user base or more funding in those countries, they will have a lot better quality code and a lot of things happening because they will attract better talent that wants to live there, or already is from there, that left and wants to come back. You will find, yeah, I think the code quality will improve as the number go up, improves in terms of users and Bitcoin sort of adoption. It's bullish. When you look at the quality of apps, like in Brazil, in India, on the app stores, like this is miles better. So it's not English centric, hopefully, for their app in their country. So I think it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of effort. Okay, so the Guatemalan guy mining Bitcoin with used cooking oil. I mean, how can you not just at least mention it? I just fucking love it. I mean, the dude is like, my backyard, I got a miner, I got a motor that can burn biodiesel. I'm going to put some coconut cooking oil on it. Why not? It probably smelled terrible around it, but hey, fantastic.
That's why the hash rate's spiking. It's that dude.
That's right. North America is dumping vegetable oils and seed oils. So now we have a new path for all these crappy oils. Let's just burn them and make sats.
If you talk with the renewable people, for some reason they've decided that biomass is renewable, and so
it's because it grows again.
Right, and so they're like cutting down entire forests to burn instead of using coal because it's more renewable,
but it pollutes more.
It's way worse by every measure, but somebody lobbied the right people to add biomass to the list of renewable technology, which is really just, going back to ancient technology. But yeah, it's insanity. And so I think this guy is at the forefront of renewable Bitcoin mining.
Pierre, you just have a wrong time frame in mind. Okay. See, oil is renewable. Every 100 million years, you're going to have dinosaurs that are going to get, an algae in the ocean that's going to be completely covered by soil again, and it's going to make oil again. So oil is renewable.
Right.
If you look at cooking oils through the same lens, it's all the same.
Everything's renewable.
The biomass thing's even more fucked up because they're cutting our forests and they're shipping them to Europe so Europe can say it's renewable. We're not even burning our own forests.
Well, it also cuts into food supply, and that's their real goal, is to depopulate the world. So,
I mean, this is true for ethanol, right? I mean, in Brazil, they do sugarcane. In the US, they do corn. And, you're taking farmland that could be producing, amazing meat or whatever, even kale for the people who prefer kale over meat. And they're producing crap that's monocropped and destroys the environment to make fuel that is really not great. You will notice on better combustion engines, especially the high-end ones, they'll say, no ethanol, please, right on the tank. So it's very unfortunate that we live in a world with such a skilled understanding of physics.
And the other point to see related is how Europe is redefining energy as green, right? So, for example, they recently redefined gas as green. Now, it's in a way you can make that argument.
Bombs obviously are ESG.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, necessity is driving them to actually remember. Actually, we have to be pragmatic instead of virtue signaling and wind and solar and all that.
Yep.
Specifically with this dude, I just want to say it's just really cool that the way like proof of work works, that like it just rewards ingenuity. Like the guy was just creative, he was resourceful, he figured out an edge. And then the second thing is, Pierre started the environmental thing part of this conversation, but he actually makes a point in the thing that the locals were just dumping the used cooking oil in his local lake. So he can just get it from all the other people too. And instead of them dumping it in the lake, he's fucking making Bitcoin off of it.
Well, don't you guys remember that movie Nerds? That the guy had the biodiesel car? Very similar, it just the oil is going to the garbage anyways. Don't throw oil in your fucking local lakes, please.
Yeah, mine Bitcoin with them.
All right. Peach was announced, came out public finally. P2P mobile application. Essentially, it's like a P2P market. I find it super cool. It's Steph, right? Who's behind this?
Yeah, proof of Steph. She's been around at Amsterdam as well at this conference.
She's been around Bitcoin for a while too, if memory serves well.
Indeed.
Not a noob. it's nice to see her starting a project. It's nice to see this P2P things not using some stupid token and hipsters just exchanging crap. What's the name of that app that like people used? I want to compare to something so people know. There was an app that like it was the craze in North America pre-COVID that like everybody was exchanging crap around, and you get some credits that were not Bitcoin. But anyways,
I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, the cool part about Peach is, Peach is mobile first, very easy to use way to get no KYC Bitcoin or to sell your Bitcoin without KYC peer to peer. But what's interesting to me is the Peach team and the Robosats team basically kind of realized it at the same time. Maybe HODL kind of realized it first, that maybe you don't need to be as censorship resistant as something like BISC, where you have that trade-off of convenience and you can have some elements of centralization. You're just not taking custody of funds. So they're both centralized, but they're not taking custody. And basically now it's a test. Is that enough for regulators or not? And if it is enough, then we can continue using that. And if it isn't enough, then you have to go to a more censorship resistant model like BISC.
I think they will have a very hard time trying to make apps like this fit in the box of regulated stuff, because then they're going to have to make Craigslist or Facebook be a KYC because you want to sell a toaster, right? I actually sold a coffee machine today. A guy showed up, gave me the money for the coffee machine, and and it was my wife who had posted right in one of this whatever places. And I'm not gonna dox. Anyways, I don't want to get into details, but it's just the guy gave me some cash, and then I wish it was Bitcoin, but in a way, kind of better it's not, because some dude showing up at my door. But I think people greatly underappreciate the size of the informal economy of sort of used trades. It's a monumentally large market. And it's just nice to see apps that focus on the Bitcoin stuff. Can you list do they do the gift card thing like BISC does? Do they do the other things like that?
You choose your preferred payment methods. There's multiple preferred payment methods. At like an event like Bitcoin Amsterdam, they actually enable cash if you're in Amsterdam for the event. And then the app automatically basically matches you with a proper buyer.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's all mobile focused. It's super clean.
Very, very cool. All right. Celsius discloses the name Transactions. I think the community sort of beat this one to death. I mean,
you can literally search anybody's name that used Celsius and get their...
Doesn't mean you should.
Fair enough.
Kind of rubbernecking the accident on the highway.
Yes.
Good point.
Because listen, anyone and everything is searchable if you look hard enough, honestly.
I mean, this is the issue though, right? The issue is that when you have KYC information, it's not going to get...
KYC is the crime.
But this wasn't even a fucking hack. The bankruptcy judge had them file this publicly.
This is the standard for bankruptcy court in the US, as far as I understand. They are not sealed, right? They want to include in the filings every single creditor, which kind of makes sense. The problem is we live in a new world where people can show up at your house and kill you. So, it's not quite rebalanced on how courts work based on internet and reality. We have a legal system that's a little unkept with times. And that's true for many things. I mean, the fact that license plates for cars work the way that they do, or that the names and addresses of company directors or executives is right on filings. It's insanity, right? That you have your personal information like that in a world where people can snap their fingers and get it. Who knows? Maybe things will change in the coming years, because you get enough backlash, right? The politicians might sort of have to change some of the rules.
I think you've got to get Bitcoiners elected who are like, hey, we're going to do things with digital signatures and it's going to be private by default and things like that. But until then, it's a mess.
Or just buy all the politicians.
Oh, yeah, sure. Of course.
I think what's going to happen is Bitcoiners are just going to own all the politicians, because productive people don't want to be politicians.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah. minding everybody else's business. Essentially, that's the job, right?
Well, that and you have people coming to you with their problems, and you need to fix all their problems. It's like,
oh my God, can you imagine?
It's like winning the lottery, right? You've got people asking you for money all day long.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Anyways, so like I might as well sort of like at least like mention it, like don't store information that you don't need to legally. Don't keep it, right? Like like when you look at all the hacks and all the Bitcoin companies, it's always like the stupid marketing database. It's never the actual financial tool, because those actually have a higher bar of security.
But in this case, it was a financial tool.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Don't lend out your Bitcoin.
Well, there's that too.
Lots of lessons here.
But like Celsius was an obvious like Ponzi scam. Anybody offering you anything that is like, say, it was actually 6 or 7 times the interest rate returns. It's like.
So this made me like question we're in such a bubble. Like I didn't even know Celsius really existed until it started like falling apart and like people were freaking out about it on Twitter. But a lot of people used it. Like a lot of people that I would have thought would never have used it.
That was the first peak. By the way, we did not reach bubble levels by the rainbow chart. So you cannot call it a bubble. And we had double peaks, which also does not count.
I think he's saying that we live in an echo chamber.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I did not notice the peak either. Like, I really didn't. I was sort of like totally going with my own life, doing the things I do. And I did not notice that we were at the peak, because it was not stupid enough. Clearly, we are in a bubble because it was stupid enough outside of our bubble.
I mean, I think we're still in a bubble with, you were talking about earlier about the wrapped Bitcoin on these other chains. Mm-hmm. Like, I see that as equivalent from an economic perspective to Celsius. And that's, there's a lot that should unravel, but I think that we'll probably end up going into a bull market before a lot of the other nonsense unravels anyway.
I'm of the opinion that, unfortunately, the shitcoin market hasn't even started, because like the best scammers out there haven't even heard about how they can create a scam on DeFi, right? So this stuff, like, man, this scam town is still going to be like,
yeah,
like
because
1,000x, 1,000,000x what we have now.
When we hear people talking about like regulatory clarity and the SEC, basically they're saying like we need to legalize shitcoins. They need to be like fully legalized. And when that happens, they say, oh, there's going to be massive growth in the crypto industry. And what they mean is that like you're going to have Apple coin, you're going to have Google coin, you're going to have Amazon coin, right? And you're going to have
moonshitcoin.cash.
Yeah. That one, but that's a legitimate investment. I don't know why you brought that up. I was talking about shitcoins. So it's only, I agree. I think that they're going to legalize shitcoining because right now it's not fully legal, right? Like it's an unregistered security. It's kind of in a gray area at best, depending who you ask. But once it's fully legalized, then I think that you're going to have the big boys come in with all their marketing, and they're going to be doing lots of pump and dumps. And, we're going to be over here Bitcoining, but people will have to learn the hard way and come join us later.
Yeah. I mean, people want to believe, right? They want to believe they can make those 20% returns by doing nothing, right? And you can't remove that from them. Like, like there is no pounding in the head, nothing. Like, and they're gonna do it again and again and again and again. Like the professionals are trading they were at the peak of the S&P. They were trading 62 times revenue. Okay.
And I see like two categories. Either the people who do learn after getting wrecked and who, go down the right path of Bitcoin. And then the others who, as you say, are the repeat offenders. And those people, the only way they learn is just by, or the only way they stop having an effect on the market is by not having any capital left. And then there's like the third category of the people who are actually profiting off of all of this, and they are accumulating capital off of this. And
and there's a lot of smart people, man. Some of these guys are like absolutely brilliant.
The only thing that stops them is running out of users, right? Of either the people have run out of capital and the money has all changed hands, or everyone else has run away and gone to Bitcoin, and that's, you know, the pyramid is over. But I think the pyramid is only sadly beginning, and I'm almost at the stage of like, we just have to ignore it and pretend it's not happening. And as you said, like, be in our own echo chamber. Like, it's okay if Celsius becomes huge and like hundreds of thousands of people get wrecked. We were telling them not to do that, and it's okay.
I feel like Mr. Hodl on Twitter. I'm not going to dox his name and stuff. Like, it's kind of like that spinning thing that they had on Interstellar. You know, he's been right since as far as I know him, right? Both attitude and about shitcoins, about everything, right? So like, you know, he's like, listen, why are you spending your energy trying to convince these people? Like, you're not going to convince a person that wants 20x, you know, like whatever, like just embrace, let it flow through you, right? Like, it is what it is.
But see, this is where I reject his nihilism, because I think there's a spectrum. And so at the margin, there are people who will listen to reason, either because they've gotten wrecked or because you know, they're smart enough to kind of learn the easy way of actually listening to Bitcoin maxis. And I know that because I ran this Twitter poll once of, hey, Bitcoin maximalists, how many of you used to be shitcoiners? And it was like 80% of them used to be shitcoiners, right? So like, obviously there is a path, but I also agree with Mr. Hodl that like, big picture, there's going to be, you know, irredeemable folks who just cannot learn.
I specifically had I had multiple people reach out saying that they got out of Celsius because I wouldn't shut the fuck up.
And it used to be called a Ponzi, even on like Clubhouse. Like, Clubhouse was interesting this last peak cycle because like it was like, you know, essentially capitalized normies, right? So it was a very like different kind of demographic. It was like, say, like 30 to 40 with money to spend on investments. Nothing like crazy, but like, which is not the norm on Twitter. And like, you could hear like people selling Celsius, and then you could hear people saying Celsius is a scam, and it was fascinating to watch. And you know, a lot of people there did get saved by people saying it was a Ponzi. But
all I can say is a lot of people lucked out that SBF decided to save BlockFi, because it would have been a lot worse.
I think the question that people should auto ask themselves is, where does the yield comes from? It should be a t-shirt, should be a sticker. Where does the yield come from?
I think it's too bad that SBF bailed out BlockFi. I think that it would have been better for him not to. Now, because he's a crypto bro, like, it would have been worse for him, right? Because he needs to keep the dream alive.
He was exposed.
But for in terms of like the truth and, you know, long-term benefit of the users, it would have been good for them to get wrecked and to you know, have a wake-up call. But fundamentally, like, people are like, oh, look, borrowing and lending Bitcoin, it's the free market, right? Okay, yeah, sure. The problem is that in order for you to actually be competent at borrowing and lending Bitcoin, and same thing with market making or trading, like, you have to be a professional. And like, only like, you know, the top, you know, 1% or whatever are good enough to actually measure credit risk and things like that. And then it's such a new market, I don't think those people even exist. And so like, there's just no history of credit in Bitcoin to base your models on. And the transparency is non-existent. It's fully opaque. And on top of that, somebody like BlockFi, when you lend your coins to them, maybe you did your due diligence and everything was great. And then a month later, they change their terms of service. They go and make a stupid loan to, you know, Three Arrows Capital, and you don't know about it because you already did your due diligence a month ago and you already lent your Bitcoin, and then they blow up. So it's like, not only do you have to do your due diligence once, you have to do it every day. Every day that you're lending to them, you have to do the due diligence over again. It's just, it's not scalable. It's a horrible product experience. And I like compared to just putting your Bitcoin on in cold storage and just living your life and not being a 24/7 credit analyst, it's just incomparable.
And BlockFi was the pros, they're all from Wall Street. They're but on the old paradigms, like this is like Bitcoin's kind of a new paradigm in terms of like, is there yield? Is there lending?
I let them a few years before, and I asked them like, where does the yield come from? They just sort of look at me like, we just manage our treasuries well, like, like, yeah, okay, great. So you're producing Bitcoin out of thin air, like it's idiotic, but it is what it is. All right, Alby, the Bitcoin Lightning app for your browser. So this app, it's an extension in your browser that lets you find out if there's websites that support Lightning in some sense for payments, for subscriptions, for whatever. The issue is extensions can see everything you do on the web, and this is a Bitcoin extension essentially. So it's like, I don't know how I feel about it. I love the idea. I just don't like the idea of extensions being able to see everything.
I thought it was interesting. Like, I like the idea, obviously restricted in terms of how much money you put at risk on this thing, but it does give a great experience. Like if you want to just tip people online, if they even got, as an example, let's say you have Alby with some sats in there, you can connect it to your own node if you choose, and it can read if somebody has the lightning emoji and the lightning address. So it just kind of, it's like a nice way to go around. So as an example, if Brave, the browser, has a shitcoin in it, you don't have to use that. Or in the same way that we might copy paste each other like a lightning invoice inside Signal, you don't have to use the Signal shitcoin, you can use Bitcoin. So it's interesting in that way that it might reduce the friction. But yes, definitely there are, security aspects that have to be grappled with.
All right.
I mean, that's unsolvable because
No, it is solvable. No, it is totally solvable.
But they need to scan the webpage to see if there's places where you can pay.
No, what we need is browsers, vendors to support the URIs correctly. If they were supporting the URIs correctly, the browser doesn't have to expose the whole page to the extension. It could just show the URI that is present on that page. This is really just a poor implementation all around browsers. It's totally doable in a reasonable, non-crazy way. It's going to get there. It's not their fault, though. It's not Alby's fault. It's Chrome's fault. It's Safari's fault.
What do you think about the idea of like the Impervious team to like ship a full browser?
I think it's idiotic. Love them. I love people trying it, but like a modern browser is like millions and millions and millions and millions of lines of code. It's a monumentally large project that needs to be done by a monumentally well-capitalized entity. And it needs a proper sort of like way of looking at how to raise that capital. The challenge is like what they're going to end up doing. I don't know about them. Just sort of thinking here is like they're going to probably use like, either Chromium or
they're building on top of Firefox.
Yeah, which is not
like Brave used Chromium.
Chromium, right? Like it's essentially like, didn't Google sort of like, didn't Firefox replace their core stuff with Google stuff? I think they did. Like Firefox as it was doesn't exist anymore. I think I can't remember. I don't follow browsers anymore.
What it basically is it's like one of these off-the-shelf browsers, but there's a default web app running. Like that's what you see when you load up Impervious browser. It shows you a default web app instead of the welcome screen you see. But then they can also run like a daemon in the background, which is how they do their decentralized identity stuff. So that's the one benefit they have and I think they can have they could have a Lightning node running in the browser too, like in the background. I don't know if they actually do that yet, but so it's just they have the ability to run a daemon. But yeah, the browser itself, they can't really modify too much.
Okay, so I digress. It's not idiotic. I think it's like it's a very, very difficult thing to achieve in the actual end goal if you're not like some massive entity, just because it's so much code to write. And web technologies are like Swiss cheese, right? Like it's just holes everywhere. It's very difficult to secure. Even Google being Google, there is like 0-day exploits.
There's one interesting thing that's kind of a little bit of a side thing, but there's a really interesting open source project called Serenity OS, which one guy just started writing for fun about 4 years ago. And now it's like a full operating system. And he wrote the entire thing for himself, including an entire browser implementation. So he re-implemented JavaScript, HTML, CSS, absolutely everything from scratch. And now he just released this as like a kind of Electron app type thing. So it is interesting that you can build a browser. Like basically a few people built that browser, and it's not really up to snuff yet, but it's kind of it's an inspiring story of what a few motivated people can do in open source. Like they did build
it's like Temple OS.
Yeah, it's like Temple OS, but it's actually kind of getting there. It's a cool one. But they built a whole browser.
But isn't there like actually a massive, like, isn't there still like a big security risk? Like, I mean, there's like
massive.
There's like,
well, especially when money's involved.
Vulnerabilities put out in Chrome and Firefox all the time, right?
Yeah.
How would they keep this thing secure?
It's brutal, guys. Like the browser game is absolutely. Remember, the browser was not designed to any of the stuff that it does in modern days.
Well, you hear about remote code execution, right? That's the worst thing that can happen in software, right? That's kind of what a browser is.
That's literally what a browser is. Yes.
It's like an environment for remote code execution. It downloads code over the internet and executes it. So it's really insane the job that a browser attempts to perform. And you could have two web apps with two tabs. One is for one bank and one is for other, and they can't steal from each other. It's kind of an insane thing that they accomplished that works at all.
Yeah, it's and sometimes they do steal from each other. And that's the problem with browsers.
Yep.
All right. So the Tornado Cash guy, he's essentially they're selling all his crap now. The guy's screwed. I doubt that this guy's going to get off, because again, what a lot of people don't realize is that the legal system, agree or don't agree, is very well designed, especially after Al Capone and crew, to go after all your crap, if they don't like you. So like, if you were running a project like that and you somehow took any financial gains from the project, they will try to go after that, and they'll use that to go after all your stuff. It's unfortunate. Privacy projects that have very large install base like they were doing, they will suffer the state's ire, regardless if it's correct or incorrect, or even if the state is correct legally, they will find a way. So the best we can all do is have decentralized projects that don't have coordinators, because that is a massive, massive hole. I think Matt doesn't have anything to say about privacy.
But in this case, I just want to be clear. I mean, there was no centralized coordinator on Tornado Cash. Like,
yeah, but he might have been taking fees.
They had a shitcoin attached to it.
Well, there you go. Like, you're profiting from crime. That's the way they define it.
I think it's more of a lesson in developer OPSEC, right?
I don't think you can keep your OPSEC perfect, like to this extent. I think that the key here is not to take profit from the essential mixing. I think that is the safe.
Hold on. I just think the problem with this logic is that it could be interpreted to be like, oh, if you are holding Bitcoin, by extension, you are profiting from people money laundering because that is increasing the value of your Bitcoin. Yeah. And therefore, what's to stop them? You say no. You're not the Supreme Court. You don't get to decide.
Like, I am not like Pierre. I don't disagree with you in logic, but I just don't think they would move it to that extent, just because it becomes too broad.
I think that it is entirely at their discretion. So if the wrong Treasury Secretary is in office, if the wrong president's in office, if somebody does the wrong thing with Bitcoin, and the fiat bros get triggered and they want to do as big of a crackdown as they can. Now, granted, I think that at this point, it would be so politically unpopular that I think that
this is how you win, right? You win by having them having the same bags as you do. That's one thing.
You also win by fighting for every little inch, right? And so I think that
I don't disagree.
While I have zero interest in Ethereum or Tornado Cash, I think it's fantastic that they are fighting this in court, and they're fighting for every inch here, because that puts that much more distance between the fiat bros and our lovely orange coin. So I think it's great. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Yeah.
I think the problem is like we agree on everything here. What I'm trying to say is when you have a very direct and obvious sort of thing, like, at least in their view, in their very, ignorant view of software, you are running the thing that does directly sort of like make this, like illegal activity happen, and you're directly taking profit from that, where they can go and say like, look, from
But
this wallet
you've
to
just
this wallet.
You've just described Bitcoin mining as well, arguably, right? That, hey, the transaction fees from this mixing service are being paid to this miner that's including the right? Like, I agree with you. That's the logic they're using. They're trying to use this logic. I'll put it that way, because
this is what I'm saying. It's like, I am not defending the logic. I'm just saying that that's the logic that
I think it should be fought. No, it's the logic they're trying to use here.
Yeah. And this guy is not in US, right?
Yeah. It's worse in Europe. Like, it's worse in Europe than in the US, for sure.
Exactly. So like, listen, what I'm trying to say is, this is the world we have. We should fight it, but this is the world we have. So like, this guy is in a jurisdiction that he did, as they are describing, cross the line, and they're trying to go after that. They're clearly succeeding. I hope that people fighting it win, but like, realistically speaking, he should have sought some like, legal advice before he chose the design.
To be clear, the real fight that's happening is like Coin Center is suing the U.S. Treasury. Like, they're suing Janet Yellen specifically because the OFAC, an American organization, put him on the sanction list, and that's why the Netherlands arrested him. So like the court case over in the Netherlands is like him just arguing over with
Right.
like the puppets rather than fighting the puppet master, and that's why Coin Center's fighting it in the U.S.
It's a very uncomfortable thing to have your country sort of like dictating how I am in a different country, what I can and can't do. It's kind of funny because like in Canada, you can ship to Cuba, products and stuff. Like, we can have Cuban products, right?
Are you shipping to Cuba?
Yeah, we can ship to Cuba.
But people are buying it from Cuba, or is that not allowed to? No comment.
I'm not going to discuss customer purchases,
fair.
But
look it up in your database. Look up in your marketing.
No, but
database.
we have to take it super seriously, right? Because if we have products going to places that have sanction lists, right, like you could really like be in trouble, and our goal is not to be in trouble. You know what I mean? I don't want to be a martyr. I want somebody else to be a martyr.
Tornado Cash, yeah, got it.
Thank you, shitcoiner. Shitcoiner is our moat.
Yeah, and they're a distraction for like individuals, but it's great that they're also a distraction for governments, and I think that we have to give them credit for that.
It's more than that. They're also very flaunty, so they're also a distraction for bad guys. Bad guys tend to go after shitcoiners more than go after Bitcoiners, it seems. So thank you, shitcoiner.
From what I've heard, I don't think anything bad has happened to Richard Hart. So that's the canary in the coal mine.
Maybe he doesn't have anything. When people flaunt at that level, they're probably broke.
Yeah, and nobody wants to steal his horrible luxury goods either.
I don't know, man. He definitely has the gangster look sort of like vibe going with the outfits. But God knows, I mean, maybe gangsters have moved on from Louis Vuitton. All right. From one gangster to another. Grayscale unveils Bitcoin mining center investment entity. And you're the mining expert there, Pierre.
The more the merrier, anybody can contribute hash. Yeah.
Wonderful. European Union announces new sanctions against Russia. Oh, I'm surprised. And I support the current thing, and the existing prohibitions on crypto assets have been tightened by banning all crypto wallets, accounts, and custody services, irrespective of amount of the wallet, previously 10,000 euros. This is so fucking idiotic. That's why like the young people love the yields. It's like, state actors trying to come up with rules about how you're not or supposed to, like, if you're supposed to gamble, transfer, or whatever. And then these kids find all this crypto shit, and they just do whatever they want. Like, look, I'm gambling, right? Like come after me if you want to. I think state actors are going to start behaving like the same. It's going to be very interesting if we see the pariah states, as they call them, having serious holds of Bitcoin and other shitcoins.
Yeah, so presumably this will be for the custodial exchanges. Maybe they'll be required to do some chain surveillance and IP geo blocking and things like
They
this.
really have to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, in this case, to block Russia, right? To sending anything to a Russian, whatever, to a person presumed to be in Russia or things like this.
So what they're really doing is North Korea, then comma Iran. They just added another comma, now Russia. Like, I mean, really, it's no.
I'm guessing, yeah.
And what Kraken was doing is that they were still serving clients in Russia, but they were taking all the trading fees and donating it to Ukrainians. And now instead, what's going to happen is that somebody in Russia, is going to benefit from the fact that now they have fewer competitors and they'll grow a Russian Bitcoin exchange, and the trading fees will not go to Ukrainians.
There you go. Well, it's the same with, like the Ukrainian bullshit against Elon because he decided to have a plan piece. You may not agree with it. That's whatever, right? I mean, like, people have different sort of like views on this, but the guy is literally donating all this fucking gear and this service to you, so like, be grateful. And he's like, I'm pretty sure that this newfound issue with the service cost is pretty much a, go fuck yourselves kind of thing. So yeah, fuck war. Can we please find peace? If you want to end inflation, find peace.
Do you think they go far? Do any of you guys think they go farther than just enforcing it on the regulated services level? Like, do they look at? Will they use chain surveillance to be like, NVK withdrew from Swan and then sent to his
probably
Russian?
Oh yeah, no, that's part of KYC, Matt. So the anti-money laundering and the KYC regulation for like proper sort of exchanges and things require you to essentially know what your customer is going to do with the money. You're kind of on the hook.
But so that's the concern. I mean, the concern is that obviously they can't ban Russian wallets on the protocol level, but the concern is that it's going to be selectively enforced.
Yeah,
but it will probably be enforced by putting a gun to someone's head who got caught sending to a Russian identified wallet.
Yeah. But that's how the whole RICO stuff started in the US with Al Capone, right? I mean, it's like, oh, you're remotely related to him. You guys talk to each other on a bar. We think you're benefiting from crime. Boom, nabbed. So like, this is all about selective enforcement because it's impossible to have arbitrary rules and do broad enforcement, right? So they just really want to go after the people they don't like, or do parallel reconstruction or like post. Say you do something later in life, within the limitation period, and they go, oh, you sent a donation to Russia of $1 5 years ago, whatever the limitation period is, and they will try to nab you for that. It's I mean, KYC and ML laws are the crime. Bitnob launches in Kenya. Wasn't this Bitnob thing sort of like some major shit show just recently? No?
Oh, what happened with them? I don't know what you mean.
There wasn't like that website sold to some other website or something?
No, that's BitBo, which is the price tracker with the news
I got
feed.
confused.
This is BitNob, which is a Nigerian exchange. They also launched in Ghana, Kenya. It's run by Bernard Parra. He's fucking awesome. And this Kenya thing is interesting because he also integrated with M-Pesa, which is the existing cell phone payment network in Kenya.
Nice.
In other countries, but it's only integrated in Kenya. So you can presumably send a Lightning payment directly to someone's, not directly, but you can send a Lightning payment that gets settled into someone's M-Pesa account that they're already used to, just making remittances that much easier.
Nice. So essentially this is connecting the existing phone M-Pesa style services there to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and all the other Kenyans as well. But like there's, I don't know.
Brilliant.
It's like 50, 60 million people are using M-Pesa in Kenya. So.
Everybody does.
So they like sign up for BitNob and then they just like attach their M-Pesa account to it. And then they have a Lightning address, which is a relative standard now. Like a lot of services support that. And you can just send to a Lightning address and it goes straight. It just converts to their local currency and drops into their M-Pesa account. And then they can do vice versa. They can send out from M-Pesa to Lightning.
Very nice.
I don't remember when the last time we recorded Bitcoin Review was, but was that before the Swan acquisition of Specter?
It may have been, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think we might have mentioned it.
Yeah,
I can't remember because the website is broken.
yeah. Well, I guess I can obviously I'm working at Swan, so let me throw a few comments in. So the idea is it's think of it like a vertical integration. Corey and the guys are very clear that Specter will remain a FOSS free open source project. But the idea is that as a vertical integration, it can enable people who are coming on board with Swan that you might be stacking some sats with Swan, and then later, okay, now it's time to upgrade. It's time to do this and that, go to single sig or potentially to multi-sig. So, yeah, that's kind of that's the direction that the team is looking to go with the project.
Yeah, I mean, it's very challenging for wallets to monetize. Like all wallets will have that problem. Software wallets, it is unless they're selling shit coins, which is what most of the software wallets that are well monetized do. So I do feel like this might be the direction that a lot of the wallets will go, as they'll get acquired by companies that already have a path to monetization. If that is a shitcoin casino, if that is something else. I mean, we hope to help some of them monetize with selling the cards and maybe giving a cut of the cards to them. But, there's only so much. And another problem too is, like, say you launch a wonderful app wallet, right? That charges, I don't know, like $5 for you to download. It's going to be open source. So somebody's just going to copy it, or somebody's going to launch a, very new, great code base for free because it's their pet project, and then nobody's going to pay for your wallet. So it's a very tricky sort of space. It's always been. So I don't know. It's just nice to see companies that don't sell shitcoins acquiring Bitcoin open source projects and sort of like, bootstrapping that.
When's Coinkite going to acquire Bitcoin Core?
We're actually in talks right now. Before this call, I had a 101 meeting with the Bitcoin CEO, and we're working on it. It's hard. I mean, on the plus side, I mean, it's like it's fall, so it's not going to cost too much, right? It's going to come with a little bit of craft. And I think one of the biggest sticking points is the fact that we want to name Blacklist back to Blacklists. That's going to be a sticky point. But again, negotiations.
Where's going to be the point where we can put in our pronouns into our hardware?
Yeah, we're gonna all the hardware is gonna be the they pronoun going forward, just for sake of clarity and a single kind of variable there. That's great. So, anyways, yeah, looking forward to that. Blocks Decentralized Exchange Protocol Team TBD partners the circle. Okay, great. You guys have any comments about TBD, because it's TBD?
I don't understand what it even is.
Okay. Same here. It's the same with that other thing that Carvalho is working on, the synonym,
the bolt thing.
Yeah, I also have no idea. Big O unveils custodial lightning. That's great, actually, because they have huge penetration into the corporate world of custody and things, and they understand very well insurance and all that crap. So for any sort of like large entity that's probably already on BitGo doing Bitcoin now, they probably offer Lightning. Sure, it's shit KYC Lightning, but still, like, it's kind of amazing deployment. It's like huge install base, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Another related one was that it's not in the notes, but River just announced an API, like a custodial Lightning API, which is, there's happened before, but I bet they did a really good job on it, because they tend to execute well when they do something. And it looks like they've, from their little landing page, rls.dev, they've partnered with Chivo, which is kind of cool, because Chivo, it was like this nice idea to have like a wallet that a bunch of people would use, but it wasn't implemented terribly well. So it's nice to see, and it's always a question like who is behind it, right? So it's nice to see that they're partnering with some real Bitcoin companies.
So I think it might be like the third or fourth entity trying to make Chivo work now.
Yeah, so actually one of the panels that I moderated just yesterday was Bitcoin and Sovereigns, and one of the guys on it was one of the directors from Alpha Point, who is one of the companies working on Chivo. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Hopefully people in El Salvador will move to something else that's not Chivo soon. I hope that nobody in El Salvador uses Chivo. They can take their free money from the distribution through Chivo and then move it to their own wallets. And then we're all winning. But it's nice to see.
I like the idea of every government having its own wallet, and right. They're competing against each other trying to get wallet users. But as long as it's interoperable, right? So as long as you can send the Bitcoin out to your own wallet and using on-chain or Lightning.
I think that's the issue, right?
As you were saying, like it's so hard to monetize wallets. Maybe they just have to be subsidized by taxes.
There you go. Let's make it rain. What we need is tax grants. Instead of going to artists making murals about things that nobody cares, they could go to devs making wallets that everybody needs.
So actually, there is legislation that has been proposed about getting more science grants towards digital currencies to improve inclusion. So I think that just making wallets easier to use, will help bring in more marginalized peoples of wherever, and that way, it's certainly better than them working on a CBDC, right?
100%. Anything is better than CBDCs, unless they have a very good exchange to convert CBDC to Bitcoin. That I am all for CBDC.
But why not just get rid of the conversion? Like, Chivo has dollars as well in it, right? And like,
you can't get rid of the conversion, Pierre. The money printer needs to go from money printer to Bitcoin.
All right.
You know how this works.
I won't get into it. We'll take up the rest of the podcast arguing about this, but yeah, okay.
No, I agree with you, but they're not going to let go of the printer.
El Salvador doesn't have a printer, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. They're one of the only countries that doesn't. All right. So Bitcoin mining hosting company Compute North files for we've already that's also this is one of the problems of having a show that only comes, like every 2 to 4 weeks, is that like some of the news starts getting old. The Compute North chapter 11. In case this podcast is the only one you listen to, this Compute North company had a real sort of Nortel vibe to it. A lot of empty data centers with skids and nothing installed. It's a shame to see companies going belly up, but it does happen.
Not the last.
No, definitely not the last. The bear market is only starting.
I see others hitting all-time lows in their stock price, but yeah, it's a tough market out there for the hash price.
If Jim Cramer is starting to get very concerned, I think we might have passed the worst part of it.
I thought his tweet was so funny about how he works 20 hours a day and it's the haters that motivate him, and I'm like, this is just such a huge cell phone. You're in your 60s and you still haven't you haven't even retired a little bit, right? You haven't even gone like part-time, and you're trapped by your haters. Like you're like in this jail of your own making. This is a horrible admission, but poor Jim.
It is amazing how people like that still exist in the public world. Do you know what I mean? Like that to me is like the weirdest part of all this is like, how does a person like that has a platform and he gets paid to show up and stuff?
It's all momentum.
It's weird.
Proof of stake.
All right, so I'm gonna only glance over the Bitcoin Uptech newsletter because there's a lot here. They've been doing their own Twitter Spaces, which are great.
Why don't you just take the recording from their Twitter Space, splice it in here?
That's a great idea.
This could be the only podcast.
This is the only Bitcoin podcast that you have
Just
to
take
hear.
aggregate.
You could take all the Bitcoin podcasts and attach them into this
There you go.
podcast, and then that
It's
way
a 20-hour
the
show.
only podcast somebody listens to.
I like this because, we do the introductory 3 hours, 4 hours, and then we just have all the other pods for another 8 to like 10 hours. And we do it in like 2x only, right? We take out the ads, we take out the host commentaries, and we only put the content at 2x. I think you're onto something here.
It could be one podcast to rule them all.
So I'm going to skip the LN stuff. Okay, so Bitcoin implementation designed for testing soft forks on Signet. That's amazing. If you don't know what Signet is, go check it out. They have some good explanations of it. It's just another testnet setup that's much better. What else? Propose new transaction relay policies designed for more Lightning. It's all Lightning. I'm skipping the OpTech competitions. So Bitcoin design community designathon.
Designathon.
Imagine a traditional hackathon, but focus on design. That's great. But somebody has to implement that. And I always urge people who do design to remember that once the design's done, it doesn't mean it gets implemented. You still need to get buy-in to get somebody to implement it. And that is true for concepts or actual UI design. Otherwise, it's just a pretty thing on a book. They are doing something at Bitcoin Builder Day at TabConf as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, Builder Day was cool. About the big hall, about 200 people, 10, 15 tables, different open source projects. Fediman had a table, LDK, I think Taro had a table, C Lightning, a whole bunch of them. Just all onboarding new open source developers, right? So like git clone the repo, set up the developer environment, run the tests. Like it was nice to see all these people. Sort of a handful of commits were made for the first time, so that was really neat. As opposed to hackathon, where it kind of becomes like a fake startup competition. Everyone's trying to like make some fake startup.
I hate hackathons.
It's cooler when it's like, okay, let's actually try to do something productive here, like onboard onto C Lightning.
Very nice. Did you get the designers to actually try to change some stuff and make some commits?
The designers were mostly working on with pens and crayons.
Wonderful.
Finger paints, various things like that.
Yeah, if you're going to pixel push, you have to push the pixel and make a commit. What else? Legends of Lightning, online global tournament for makers to learn, connect, collaborate, lots of stuff. Well, it's happening right now.
I think it's so. This is like an ongoing thing. I know John's Bihari was wanting to get on and basically publicize about this a bit more. The idea is that there's like ongoing ways that people can be contributing. That's kind of my understanding of it so far. I know there's a bunch of Lightning people who are involved. So
very cool.
Yeah, if anyone else has anything.
He basically had like the same concern that Justin kind of just highlighted, which is like hackathons. People come up with like a quarter of a project and then it just like dies after the hackathon. And he's trying to incentivize more momentum and like longer term.
We've always said this internally here that hackathons is kind of like you cannot make a product or a service in that span of time, especially like conceptually and implementation wise. Like, I think it's a lot of fun for people to find people they want to work with. I think it's fun for people to find ideas, but I think people shouldn't take hackathons seriously. I think they should just sort of like use it as a fun thing to do. Come up with something silly to do, accomplish it, and then, oh shit, I have a bunch of people I like to work with. Maybe we should come up with a world-changing idea and take 2 years to build it. So yeah, very cool. Events. Adopting Bitcoin is November 15 to 17 in El Salvador. Africa Bitcoin Conference, December 5 to 7th. That one is very cool to see. I think it's like the first super like proper big Bitcoin conference in Africa. Unconfiscatable, December 6th to 7th. I don't know if they're going to be doing Vegas or not, but it was actually fun last year. Anyways, do you guys have any other news thing or something we missed in this? Because it's only been 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is a very short Bitcoin.review. Otherwise, I'm going to have clips of Marty reading the release notes.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I might as well just mention there's a couple other events. There's Plan B Lugano. That's a Plan B forum. That's on end of October. There's Pacific Bitcoin. That's on 10th and 11th November in LA. And there's Bitcoin for India. So that's going to be like another one in start of November. I think it's around 4th or 5th off the top of my head. So that'll be cool. They're trying to grow the India scene. So yeah.
Thank you. We'll add those to the notes.
They definitely thought inviting MVK to speak would mean he would mention in the events section, and he still left it out.
You got to pay top dollar to get into that events section.
I think that, now that I have had Pierre here for a second time, I can actually bring it up without being awkward. So like, I really want that minor kind of revenue and advertising dollars on the show. We need a lead, an exclusive sponsor of this.
It's not just revenue, right? Like miners have costs as well.
Oh, you want to give me some costs?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, if you can find a way of giving me on the books losses for me, that counts too, okay? I will buy loss at a discount to put on my balance sheet for my year end. I accept that too. I love accountants.
Yep. All right. I'll send you some liabilities.
Thank you. I will take it. Okay, guys. Any last thoughts? Pierre, you go.
No, excited to see all the progress, in particular, the giant multi-sig. I mean, I think that even aside from just having a massive multi-sig, just getting more out of the same amount of block space. I came out with a research report with Joe Burnett from Blockware about transaction fees. I think that the biggest myth in Bitcoin is this idea that there's a tragedy of the commons with block space and transaction fees.
It's total bullshit.
The kind of concern trolling about long-term security and all this. So go check out that research report. Go to riotblockchain.com, news and press and research in the menu there. So yeah, excited about big multi-sigs taking up very little space on chain. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Justin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, the list went AWOL before the show. I was going to put some Fedimint news on there, but the list disappeared from GitHub. I don't know where the list is currently. I don't know if it will return next time. But yes, Fedimint had a big month or 2 months since we last spoke. We got our first Signet deployed. We had a mainnet demo at HCP conference, and our friend Paul Miller, Future Paul, mentioned earlier in the show, helped build a basic mobile prototype. So like a private send and receive custodial Lightning wallet, which is really neat. And there was also a really cool research project where some people, Nick Farrow, Lloyd Fournier, and others made a demonstration of a Taproot native wallet that would use Frost to coordinate the multi-sig. So the cool thing is the federation would just have like an address or a footprint on chain that would look exactly the same as like any other Taproot wallet. So it's still kind of a research project, but things are moving along. If you're a talented Rust developer, please head over to our Discord, chat.fedimint.org. Maybe on to Stephan Livera.
Yeah, no, it's we definitely did a rug bull there on the comments and how it's added and stuff. Too bad. I wanted to have the stuff on the list. That's why I always ask the wonderful guests to submit their updates in time, right, Justin? You even got 2 free domains out of this call.
What a lucky
what a lucky guy. So Fedimint is hiring. If you are a Rust
Fedimint
dev,
is an open source project. You can come contribute to it. Fedi, the company, is hiring,
Fedi is hiring. Fedi is paying, and Fedimint is benefiting. Go work for Justin. He's a good employer, I assume. Yeah, no, it's well. Thanks for coming, Justin. Stephan.
So I think we're in a bear cycle. I think one thing that I've been seeing is some good community growth. We're seeing like meetup scenes growing. We're seeing, especially in the non-English scene, like it's almost like in 2018 that was almost a growth of the English Bitcoin only, and now this cycle we're seeing some of the non-English Bitcoin only scenes growing around the world. So just keep up the momentum. Of course, it's a bear cycle, but doesn't mean we can't have fun along the way.
Yeah. Hey, Match, I've been learning a lot with you. Did you notice that this time I called each person and I asked them to give their final thoughts?
This is why it's beneficial to have an experienced co-host.
I know. I love having you as a guest, and I'm very appreciative of that. For people that don't know, Matt has recorded the Rabbit Hole recap this morning. He's, I don't know, like, it's a good 20-day streak of being hangover in conferences and parties. I honestly don't know how he does it, but he clearly does it. So, Matt, any final thoughts?
This was a fun conversation. It was a great crew. I enjoyed it. And just to second Stephan's thoughts, like in Amsterdam, the Dutch Bitcoin community is strong as fuck. I had no idea. I was blown away. It was pretty cool meeting all of them. And yeah, I'm bullish. Let's go.
You know, it's funny. The biggest Bitcoin conference that ever happened, it was big enough. It was actually Bitcoin Foundation Amsterdam in 2014, which was like ginormous. And it had like, it was proper production value. It was weird. It was like a Bitcoin conference of today in that time. And that was, I think, the last one of that size for a while too. The Dutch community is amazing.
Was that the one where Vitalik announced his quantum mining scam?
No, that might have been earlier.
Supposedly that was in Amsterdam.
There was a lot of contention at Bitcoin Foundation at that time. And I think there was a competing conference at the same time as well. So I can't remember where there was. We did have a guy come into our booth drunk and order a massive skid of Coinkite payment terminals to his hotel, which was a very complicated setup. But it was an interesting conference nonetheless. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate the fact that you guys all came and joined us for what is it, like almost 2 hours and a half. It's a big list. So and Justin is hiring. Thank you, and everybody have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening and going through another boring list of updates once again. Don't forget to get in touch on Twitter at Bitcoin Review HQ, or the Telegram Bitcoin Review Pod, or email bitcoinreview@coinkite.com. Remember, I don't have a crystal ball, so if you have a cool project you're working on, do make sure to get in touch with us. And if you're still not bored, you can follow me on Twitter at NVK.